Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present the work that we are doing under the EDIT project, and also some of the IPCC results from which we are trying to follow up the EDIT project work. So basically what we are trying to say is that I'll be presenting mostly the Global South perspective, because we need to understand that these countries need more investment, because we are talking about the graduating least developed countries. And who are these graduating least developed countries? These graduating least developed countries, say for example, if I give from the examples from Asia, will be Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. So these are the countries who need at least 7% growth rate to catch up with the basic human well-being needs for their people. And so now the question for them is that how do they grow at 7% growth rate of GDP in a carbon-constrained world, because they need finances to decarbonize their growing demand of the supply side. So this is a major question to all these countries. Whenever I talk to the policymakers, their challenge is they have to grow, they have to increase their income, because the energy consumption is bound to increase, because they have to pull out the people from the poverty. So the question, and also what they ask, repeatedly, is that how can we create more employment? So this is the real dilemma for them, how they need to grow differently. So what we find is that if we look into the demand side options, our suggestion is that not to focus only on the supply side to meet the growing demand. So if you want to meet the growing demand, say 3 times or 5 times of growing demand, and you want to decarbonize the whole supply side, then it will mean huge amount of financial resources need. So what we are proposing for these countries is that they can diversify by looking into the demand side options. And it helps in diversifying and shifting investment patterns and create new economic opportunities for the people, and which has, synergistic link with multiple developmental goals. And multiple development goals are well-being enhancing, and also sometimes we can think within the framework of sustainable development goals in the near term. So what we wanted to show is that in IPCC report, we are showing that just by reducing the food waste in the whole supply chain, and by shifting the dietary choices towards the plant-based nuts and different other healthy balanced diet, one can reduce the emissions to a very large extent, which is the blue bar which you are seeing there. And if you do not do anything on the demand side, then the left-hand side gray bar shows that how much you need to decarbonize if you are looking only at the supply side. But if you are, our argument is that if you are looking into the demand side opportunities, then we can reduce the burden on the supply side decarbonization need, and only the right-hand side gray bar is the supply side decarbonization that will be needed to meet the nutrition goals as well. So you can meet the nutrition goals, as well as you can reduce the need for financing the decarbonization of the supply side by adding those colored bars, which shows that how you can work on the demand side, look into more granular options, granular technologies, dietary shifts, and reduction in food waste, then you can meet the nutrition goal as well as the climate goal, and you can reduce the a need for decarbonization of the supply side. Then what we are saying is that look into the other sectors also. If we look into the industry sector, if we look into the land transport sector, and if we look into the building sector, there also we are showing that if we are focusing only on decarbonization of the supply side, then left-hand side bar is by 2050 how much we need to decarbonize the supply side. But if we look into the demand side options, say for example in industry, if we have circular economy, so if we have the right infrastructure for providing the circular economy, if we have the industrial production system which produces longer lived products, so these are the different options and material efficient products, then we can reduce the demand for energy and the supply side need, which the demand cannot, I mean, there will be always some supply need. So that is something much reduced, which is on the darker gray bar on the right hand side. So if we look into that, this is how we are showing in different sectors that what the demand side opportunities provide, diversification of the economy and different technological infrastructural investment that needs to be done to reduce the burden of supply side decarbonization. And the supply side decarbonization need will be much lower. Look at the land transport system. If we look at it, then we see that by introducing the demand side intervention, the need for decarbonization in the land transport sector is much smaller compared to what we see on the left-hand side gray bar. So this is how we are showing, but we are not saying that it's the same storyline for all the sectors, because sectors are different, so they need different kind of intervention. While in the food and nutrition sector, it was more of behavior change which was needed because it's the dietary choice and the waste management, supply side management. But in the industry sector and the land transport sector and the building sector, it's more the infrastructure need. Suppose in this room, we have a wrong infrastructure which does not allow us to have a thermal comfort which we need for our better health. So if we are not putting on our jackets or warm clothes, then we will have a health problem, and also we are using much more energy than that is needed. These are exactly what we are narrating is something going on in these studies to show that how you change your thermostat default setting, and so that those are the changes that we can. So it's not that each one of us is complaining about the thermal comfort of this room, but it's the infrastructure problem. So unless the consumers are empowered by access to right infrastructure or technology, the consumers, despite their motivation, they cannot change this. So that is one of our main message in the IPCC report. Another thing which we are showing is that future is going to be the electricity supplied systems, energy system. So we are showing that if we are looking into the electricity supply system, if we are not looking into demand side, again we are looking into very high supply which needs to be decarbonized. But if we look into the demand side, you can see how the left-hand side bar really reduces to the smaller supply side which needs to be decarbonized. So on the electricity sector, decarbonization burden will be much less if we introduce building related all the behavior change which I showed you earlier. So with this, what we are trying to say is that demand side actions, just one point I want to mention here is that on the electricity sector, besides looking into the industry and the end user demand, what we are also saying is that we need to look into within the supply side how through artificial intelligence, demand management, demand load management, how the demand can be reduced. So what we are saying is that if we do all these demand side actions, actually we get more human well-being synergies. So multiple development goals are actually met if we are working on the demand side intervention through granular technology distribution. And also this has multiple sustainable development goal benefits. I'm just showing that if we are going for different, food waste reduction, etc., then there is maximum of positive links with the sustainable development goals. So what we are saying is that people do matter, but then they need to be empowered with the right kind of technology access and the infrastructure access, and inequity in consumption needs to be addressed, because there will be some growth in the least developed countries, the demand, and then status consumption everywhere in the world needs to be managed better, so that which does not add to the well-being but which adds to the emission more. So what we also try to do is that with this idea in mind, for India we try to see that if we look into just the electricity sector, and if we want to see that what does it mean if we have a scenario where we have the demand side intervention. The right hand side the bars are showing that what is the cost of electricity use if we introduce all the demand side intervention or demand side flexibility. And we find that cost of providing electricity is actually going to be less than looking into only the supply side intervention. We looked into all the different Asian countries, and we see that at least till date, Malaysia, Bangladesh and Pakistan need more energy efficient technologies because their energy intensity is more than 1 for GDP growth. So that means while all the countries have can produce with less than 1 unit of energy, 1 unit of GDP, these countries are still using inefficient technologies, so they do not have access to right technologies. So what we are saying is that there is enough needs to be understood, that we need to understand that if we are working with economic systems under well-being enhancing model, then moving away from GDP-driven paradigm, what does it mean at the macro level? We also need to understand that usually policies that are aimed at behavior and lifestyle changes are politically challenging, but what needs to be done to make them work better, and what policy sequencing and combination might make it happen more. For the least developed countries, they are going to grow now, so how to make it possible for them not to get locked into the unsustainable pathway is a major challenge, and I think there are enough scope and enough knowledge that we need to really pass it on and make them to move on a sustainable development path with human well-being, multiple goals of human well-being being met. With these words, I'll thank you and I'll stop here.